Well, welcome back into the vegetable garden here in the mid-Norfolk farm garden. New garden this, starting to plant this up this year, and I'm feeling quite pleased with the progress we're making on this. It's doing very well. The globe artichokes that we planted a couple of weeks ago in the foreground starting to bed in, taking a little while getting their feet going, as has the rhubarb that we moved for a second time in a couple of months just in the rows behind it. Quite a bit of dieback on that. I'm not worried about it at all, just going to keep it watered, and I'm sure that's going to come back and really be a large row or clump later in the season. My very rustic looking bean pole has stood for a week now, thank goodness. Haven't had any deer damage on it. I didn't get around to putting any mesh around those runner beans. And out here, that's usually the kiss of death, because we really are fighting the wildlife to grow things in this position. Muntjac, roe deer, pheasants, pigeons, crows, partridge. I'm missing a few, I'm sure, but if it's edible they'll come and help themselves. But they haven't gone for my beans yet, not that I'm too worried about it. Starting to find their way around these stems, and we'll see how they go on over the season. I'm going to plant more in about a month to 6 weeks, so I've got a succession of beans. But last year they just kept flowering and fruiting, and we picked them regularly, and they did fantastically in this location once we got them going. This is the little bed of Jerusalem artichokes we planted out. We moved them in growth from where they were coming up in a path, and they've taken about a week to get established. They looked a little soft and sorry for themselves initially, but we've watered them, and just look at the growth that we're getting here. I'm pretty confident we're going to get a bumper crop in this location, because they're just going to love the sun, and I think this soil's going to really suit them as well. We've got a lot of horse manure dug into this, and it's fresh, unpreviously worked topsoil that's been really well turned, and it's nice and deep. So great expectations for my Jerusalem artichoke harvest at the end of this season. Now, Phil, my digger man, bless him, I pulled him off his digger one day and tasked him with building me these horrendously over-constructed coal frames out of some joists that came out of the old barn. I just couldn't bear to burn these, they were too good. And the double glazing units that are sitting on top of them have been sitting around for a year. They did get put in the skip, to be honest, and I just thought, what a waste, why can't we use those somewhere in the garden? So we built these coal frames, and they're just about light enough for me to physically move them. So I've located a couple over these courgette plants, which I'm hardening off, and as soon as these start growing away and getting established, I'm going to actually remove this coal frame off them. But it'll just give them that little bit of extra support, because again, when I first bought these out, they'd obviously been in a polytunnel or greenhouse, and they really did not do anything, just sat around looking miserable. But in this coal frame, they're really getting going well. Same can't be said for the asparagus that I bought dried in packets. I don't seem to get on particularly well with growing it like this. I far prefer to buy it, if I can, in a growth in a pot with some decent roots on it. But they are coming through, got a couple of them, as you can see. I'm going to be patient, and hopefully the rest will start emerging through. We put, I think, about a dozen in here. I'm hoping to fill this whole pot with asparagus. I've reverted back to buying seed, and we've got that coming up at the moment. So if I do get some good plants going, then we're going to fill this, and if I come across any in a nursery or garden centre, then again we're going to try and get an established permanent planting in this area, and we may well put an edge to it. We've got some more of these edging girders that came out of the barn, the wooden things, and we may well block it off and gradually raise the beds in here, because I think it will grow far better on a really nice free draining sandy soil. Now, if you've watched this channel regularly, you'll have seen us planting some overwintering red onions at the end of last season. Had great expectations for them, but they didn't do very much at all. The only ones, as you can see, that survived and are doing really well are those last 3 or 4 in this row. The rest I've had to replant with fresh onion sets this year. They're probably going to catch up, but again, it's a little bit exposed here, and I'm having to water them because the soil in this new bed's really quite free draining. I'm going to try and grow them as fast as I can, because I think that's the secret to growing a good onion, not letting them dry out or stunt the growth in any way. You really want the growth to continue really at quite a rapid pace to form a nice large but mild onion, and that's hopefully what we're going to get here. 2 rows. We've got another 2 rows in the old vegetable garden where they grew very well last year, despite being completely ravaged by a pile of earth that was dumped on them by a digger. I really thought I'd lost the entire crop, and then they just came back. So a little bit more resistant than you give them credit for, onions. I always think if the tops get broken off or bent, that's it, but sometimes they do come back. I've got a little row of beetroot next to them that's just, you can see the seedlings coming through the soil. This is a mixed variety where we've got reds, whites and the golden beetroot, a heritage variety which I'm very fond of when it comes to cooking. They really do look fantastic on the plate. So we'll see how they get on. And next to them, this bizarre cross-looking construction is, I didn't have any net to put down, but I have got sweet corn coming through. There we go, it's germinated, coming through, but I just thought looking at those it was like a magnet to a wood pigeon. But they grow fields of this stuff around here as maize for the cattle, so hopefully it might survive. I really should get a bit of fleece or net to protect this, just to make certain, because I do want to grow this as a full block of sweet corn, which I really enjoy. Well, talking of netting, we've been picking rocket here for about 2 weeks now. I've got next to it the next row of seedlings coming on, and this is really important to try and keep a regular succession of plantings. Same with the lettuce. We've got almost at the stage where we could start picking a few of those outer leaves, but they really need to be a bit further on than that. And I do want to grow some specimen lettuces this year, little gem or webs. I think we'll see what's available locally, either as plug plants or we'll get some seed in. I do like a nice heart with a blanched centre on the salads that we're getting, but they're growing really nicely. Have to be netted, otherwise my little friends get them. Don't know how I grow anything in this garden. As I say, I mentioned all the wildlife, forgot this lot. Eat anything you plant basically, wouldn't you? But anyway, it's going well and I'm very pleased with what we've got. Still got lots of bare earth, which is really quite exciting. Usually when you've been gardening for a while, you don't have a fresh area of earth to get excited about, but this year with all this new garden to think about planting up, I'm hopefully going to be self-sufficient in salad crops and greens for the whole season from here on out, right the way through to October.